We've got another one from Benny Boy. This time going up against Really Unskilled, and I'm feeling bad for him. Every time we show Really Unskilled, he loses. He loses every time. I don't know if I've spoiler alerted that. Hopefully not. Hopefully we get something less stompy this time around, because I feel like every time I'm checking out this guy, bondaged. He's just bondaged up and being spanked by your beasties, by your misters in their mega randoms. Hopefully we can see him shine, because we're back on this map. Last time we saw him here, it was against BC's Chinese, and he got outpost rushed up the wazoo playing the HRE. But this time he is not up against the Chinese. He's not up against a civ that even really considers doing outpost early on. He's up against the French as DeMusliM. It's an interesting pick here on good old Lipany. I feel like I've been seeing this a lot more out of Ben than most players. Like, some players still really do desire the French, but I still feel like when you're playing Lipany, a lot of people are thinking Rus, or they're starting to move away from that and they're thinking more about the Abbasids. Chinese are starting to research a bit. Delhi is still one of the kings, easily in my opinion. This generation would have been phenomenal for them though, so I think this is one of those examples where you kind of get the mixer. Like, while these sacred sites are still close together, they're actually far apart in terms of like how long it takes to reach them, and that can be less beneficial to a civ like the Delhi. I think that's why a lot of people start switching to picking them on Dry Arabia, because I feel like Dry Arabia spawns are more natural for that flow between two sacred sites than, say, something like Lipany. Let's focus on the civs in the game. HRE, that could benefit a lot from these relic spawns, actually. He's got two pretty safe ones, but he's playing up against the French. Let's think about what the win conditions are here. So, for the HRE, it really is about that fast castle to unlock your rush. And that rush can come in terms of a gold rush via more gold on the relics with the Ranks Cathedral, or it can be a unit rush via the Burgrave Pass. I think that's where the true option emerges for the HRE, and you do get two clear options. You either play full castle for the aggression, or you rush Imperial. You rush Imperial whenever you go for the Regnants. On the other side, DeMusliM is interested in prolonging Feudal as long as possible. Every time he engages at Really Unskilled's base and forces him to build an outpost or build a military building and actually push out a few archers or spearmen, he's happy because he's kicking the timing down the road. He's delaying HRE's win conditions. And also enabling his own, because the longer you're stuck here in Feudal, the more you benefit as you build up a villager advantage. And also, we usually see a lot of these French players go for their multi-TC approach. That's another detail I'm intrigued to see if DeMusliM goes towards. I think there's a lot of value in extending to the west side here. You can see there's a lot of deer over here, berries, the gold. Like, he has a lot of justification coming this way. So we'll have to see if that's going to move for him. North side, less so. I think it's a little bit too open, and raids are a bit more feasible. Whereas if you play down to this, like, southwest of your starting point, you can actually start to bridge towards this natural defense point. And as a result, you're also moving closer to the HRE's base. Uncle Chapel being built up, and wow. Does it get much better than this? I feel like it doesn't get much better than this, right? That's a pretty incredible Arkan Chapel. You get the sheep, the berries, the gold, and the wood. The only things missing is stone. And that can be annoying because some people do like to go for the multi-TC build, but I don't think Really Unskilled is going to do that. Really Unskilled is more the type of player that I'd expect to see doing the fast castle into, I'd say, Burgrave. I feel like that's an unlock he's usually looking for. Then again, the times we have seen him playing HRE are in situations where he's forced to do Burgrave to defend, more so than he's doing it because he wants to end the game. So we haven't really been able to see him in full swing. I kind of feel bad because, as I was highlighting earlier, each time we've seen Really Unskilled recently, he has looked really unskilled because he's always getting his ass whooped in the other game. And I don't feel like it's representative of this dude. Like, Really Unskilled, to his credit, is a top 25 player. He's ranked 25th in the world right now with 744 games played in ranked. Yep, you just heard me correctly. This guy has played 744 games of ranked already. And pretty much every single one, I think every single game on his profile that I've been able to find on AOE4 World is HRE. He only plays the HRE. Now, that does make you quite the one-trick pony, but I've got to give him credit for the conviction, for the commitment to a civ that isn't really... I don't think the HRE at any stage has been seen as a top 2 civ, especially if it's not map-specific. That's incredible to me. What a goddamn lad. Let's see if it works out for him here up against the #1 ranking player on the leaderboards. Always ahead by what feels like quite a mile. Let's see if he can be a mile ahead here. Is going into the archery range. Interesting choice up against the HRE. Not something you typically see players do in Feudal, simply because the HRE player will have the option to build early man-at-arms. But he's anticipating the spears first, and for good reason. Whenever a person opens racks first, they're probably going for spears. Even if they're HRE, it just makes sense, because when you're up against the French, like, why would you push man-at-arms first? It seems somewhat illogical. And then immediately the stables afterwards. So it looks like they're both still aware of what's happening. I think Really Unskilled has been kind of poking his nose in every once in a while with the scout. DeMusliM seems more than willing to allow that to be the case, at least for the moment. Ben. Ooh. Wrong side of the wall, sir. Wrong. Bye. Oof. That's the power of them. That's the power of the French right there. Respect them or die to them. Nice hit there. The 1-2 tap. Easy peasy for him. The strike's coming in. As Really Unskilled does see that there is going to be an extension to the west side, as expected by Ben. He needs to keep up the good gathering rates by going onto the DA. No signs of the multi-TC approach yet. Now, this option wouldn't really be feasible for Really Unskilled with the layout of his base, the way this is being played, but it could be something that DeMusliM goes back for, especially considering that Really Unskilled is investing pretty hard into military at this stage, going into the racks and the stables already. Looks like Blacksmith will also be going up. Couldn't stop that. If Ben can cleanly get up to 4 knights, he can actually run rampant back and forth from the sides here. And he'll be able to do so in the coming minutes due to the fact that when you play as the HRE, although you have phenomenal gathering rates, those gathering rates come with a downside. Like, everything should have pros and cons. And one of the cons of being so good at gathering resources is that you're too good at gathering resources. You gather them too quick, and it means you come out from the safe areas a lot quicker than other civs. That could be exploitable, especially for a tempo-aggressive civ like the French that tends to get up in your face and is always looking for that moment where you wiggle your way out a bit too far from your starting holdings. Ben gets much more troops out. The archer ball is going to start building up. I wouldn't be surprised if the blacksmith gets dropped in the next minute. And you might even contemplate siege engineering down the line. You don't want to rush towards it, though. Like, it's actually a very big mistake when playing against the HRE to rush siege engineering, because they have emergency repairs. So they can very easily offset these early aggressive timings. And the problem of going into ram rushing too early is, you know, because it's a rush, like, usually you're sacrificing something else. And when you invest 300 wood that early, that's before we even talk about the fact you've got siege engineering and blacksmith. You sacrifice a lot of your scalability at that point in the game. Like, you slow down your timings, you'll build up. It's not pretty. Not against the HRE. It doesn't do enough. Like, you need 3 Rams plus, and that's a heavy demand. And it's a big reason why, in general, you don't see as many Ram rushes anymore. But especially against the HRE, they're incredibly rare. Once again, it just comes down to what is highlighting, where they come out of their initial holdings naturally anyway. So you don't necessarily have to play into the starting base as much as you would against other civs, because they will quickly extract through their initial resources. And because they want to remain efficient, seek to expand to more. Spears being targeted down. Nice mass there. Ben got up to the number. 7 seems like the golden number for him to snipe them down quickly. He starts stepping away. Horseman, that's an easy snipe. Nice, 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 nice. Almost got blocked in there. Nice attempt by Really Unskilled. Horseman will stick on top of the archers, forcing Ben away. And it looks like it's going to be a good defense out of the HRE here, as Unskilled is able to hold. DeMusliM, most important detail for him, it's annoying to lose the archers, but he does keep all the knights alive. And that was close to not being the case, actually. You can see what Unskilled was doing. He was wrapping past the knights to try and body block them in, because then if you hold their retreat point, the spearman can surround them. He has enough troops for that. You probably would have killed all 3 of the knights if the DeMusliM hadn't been quick on the retreat. Ben, I think he's getting a second Vanguard already. He wants to open up a second front. This is the way usually most players seek to play the French. Like, as the feudal gets prolonged, the logic is that you're gradually building more and more of these knights. And you eventually reach a point where you can begin to peel them off into groups of like 3 or 4 that can, you know, each individual knight at this stage basically do their own damage, right? Because there's no textiles, they can 1-2 tap. You're about to see that now as they move in. Striking one down is a freebie, does get out, so be happy with that. Chipping away at the eco situation for the HRE. Now being 5 ahead. Now, of course, you do scale that naturally without killing villagers, courtesy of the fact that you build them fast as the French, but you don't want to wait around for that to reveal itself on its own because you are against the HRE. They will boom up in that time. Instead, you want to keep chipping away. And I actually like the way that Unskilled's taken this. It's a very defensive approach, but you kind of have to be in this matchup. He wants to protect his land in this area with the farms now being placed down, but he wants to secure the berries. And with the double outpost nearby, it's going to be very difficult for DeMusliM to raid in here. And make no mistakes, this is the most important resource right now for Unskilled. There's a heavy demand on what he's doing. Horsemen and spearmen, primarily food. 100 for the horsemen and 60 for the spearmen each. Yes, it does require a little bit of wood, but as you can see, Unskilled has protected himself on that wood line. He started to chop away at the tree line in a way that kind of just carves it out. It hollows it out. It's still a defensive line via these initial trees on the outskirts, but he won't miss out on getting deeper into this line in the meantime. And it means that it's very difficult now for Ben to raid in because, you know, it's not as if Unskilled had gone quickly through this direction and there's a second path in. This is a mistake that we were seeing out of players a lot more frequently in the early days of Age of Empires, but this is an area in which players have started to calibrate better. They've really upped their game. I say as he chops up. Still, this is the problem. Like, if you aren't paying attention to it 24/7, you'll eventually chop through. It's kind of crazy as well, because there would have been more value in prioritizing the south side as it's in Arc and Chapel range. So this does just seem like mismanagement by Unskilled. Looks like he's going to extend to the north, to the south side. Wants to get himself the reserve gold. And the timing seems to be very good here. As the wraparound comes in for the Knights, they're going to be found wanting. All the walls go up just in time. The timing on this from Unskilled. Wait, no. Yep, that's a choke point you don't want to go through, Ben. That is a choke point you do not want to be rushing through. He backs off just in time. That could have been incredibly bad for Ben because there was a moment there when Unskilled might have been able to tap the hammer on that wall segment and block in the Knights. Instead, ooh, Unskilled, a little bit overly aggressive here. We'll lose a bunch of spearmen rushing out like that. Remember, the power in these spears is when they brace. If you just rush in and stab straight away up against the Knights, you're going to have a bad fight. And after all this, DeMusliM, of course, did eventually get into that blacksmith. Won't go for siege engineering anymore. He doesn't have the value in it at this stage. He could think about going multi-TC still. Right now, he's done a good job of slowing down Unskilled's timing. If you think about the investment that's been made here, so we saw what? I'd say we've seen 8 spearmen at least die. He's got 19 other. Let's say it's a solid 25 spearmen he's built, which is quite a lot. He's spent a ridiculous sum of resources here. 2,000 resources have been spent on spears. Horsemen, up at 15. Well, that's also not pretty for him. 1,800 resources there. These horsemen alone are his techer. So it's fair to say that Ben has done a good job of keeping Unskilled here, of locking him in. And the reason this becomes very frustrating for an HRE player is what we talked about with the initial holdings. Like, they're starting to dry up. This tree line is almost done. After that, look where you have to move. This is going to be very dangerous. A very dangerous point in the game for Unskilled if he cannot access Castle Age before he has to move out for that wood line. Ben. Thinking about going in. We'll back away. Archers. Be careful as the horseman trying to engage. That's a bad engagement with Unskilled, but he tries to wrap round. He wants to block them in. He's willing to commit. He's willing to sacrifice to get rid of the entire force of Ben's, and it looks like it might have worked out for him because the Knights weren't able to stick to their targets long enough. And the horsemen will just eviscerate that archer line. Down to 27. Horseman count. He's only lost one of them so far. A lot of spearmen are falling fast, but it doesn't matter. They're the cannon fodder right now. He's trying to get around the back again. Min-maxing the damage of the horsemen. Folks, this is the way you pull them. This is so much better. What Unskilled is doing. You want to get around the back because then the archers, when they run past you, they're going to take additional damage trying to retreat. Fight has just turned into a bog down now. Neither player willing to move anymore. Horseman count is quickly being depleted for Unskilled, but look at the count for DeMusliM. Just as many troops lost, barely any archers left, and enough spearmen, they can finish off the Royal Knights here. We'll start to target them down. Remaining horsemen will move on top of the archers, and they die so fast. Spearmen will be cleaned up. Archers will be cleaned up. Cavalry will be all that remains, and although Ben has more troops, this costs him more. And we talked about the heavy burden of what Unskilled paid to defend there, but we didn't even get a chance to talk about how many Knights were built. The Knights are more pricey. They're double the price of Horsemen. So, you know, if you're talking like double Horsemen to half the Knights, like it's an equal exchange, then we have to talk about the Archer situation. That was, what, 40 Archers? Around 40 Archers? I think maybe 25 Spearmen, possibly 30 total. And they cost the same. Not the same resource exact, but the same total. Archers costing 80 resource total. Of course, with a heavier burden on spear, on wood rather, and spears costing 80 as well, with a burden on food. The reason that can be somewhat beneficial in the next 2 or 3 minutes for Unskilled here is that if he's leveraging food, he's now covered. He used his wood to build up infinite food supplies. DeMusliM, however, has not made that full exchange. You can see he's midway through the farmland transition. And neither of these civs get a discount in that department. Neither of them get like a clear one up. You know, now that you're moving out of range of the Hull Inspiration, you don't get as much gathering. Looks like he is somewhat walking back and forth in range, maybe intentionally, because that doesn't look like one prelate alone should be buffing this many people. Oh wait, there we go. That's why. I could just identify him. Not even by the red outline. It's the tiny little bald head that's popping up over the tree line. I do like that move out of Unskilled, though. So he's more efficient on the wood, which means he's able to afford to push the troops as well as the farm transition. And you can see how much bigger it is for him. Like, the farm count is up to 28. Meanwhile, when we look at DeMusliM's base, he's only at 12. Remember, these are gathering 40% quicker. Most of them are in range of the Arkan Chapel. Sorry. Arkan Chapel. March in. Knights just trying to stab in here, but they can't go deep. They will at least force the garrison for a moment out of Unskilled. Secondary assault coming in. The walls didn't go up in time. It is only one knight, though. Still no textiles. That one knight will be punished for what he's done here. Horseman could just chase him away, but you can see that the multi-pronged assault, Ben is keeping up that pressure. And folks, while Ben keeps up that pressure, he's prepping himself for a castle age. Look at the resource count right now. Now with the food, the infinite food online, and the gold looking so good, he can think about castle. Unskilled keeps reinvesting in cheap crap. This is the weakness of doing hard spearmen and horseman pushes. And we see this from the deli a lot. It is expensive per unit. You are building quantity over quality. And in that choice to make quantity over quality, it's easier to lose these individual units than it is to lose a knight. At least in most situations. You can give me vacuum examples of like, oh, if a knight is surrounded by spears, he's going to die like, you know, just as quickly as a horseman. Sure. But in general, these knights will get better value out of their life. And yes, they are more pricey, but they're designed to last a lot longer. Let's see if they can do that here in this fight. Knight's trying to back off. Wrap around again. Really Unskilled has once again done it. He sandwiched him. The side contingent of archers doesn't matter. And this is going to be a complete massacre. Ben trying to back out. Might be able to wiggle a few knights off, but that is a heavy loss in this fight. And Ben, the issue with the way you lost this is it might be a little bit obvious what you're doing next. Because you're clearly going for castle. If I am really unskilled and I see you throw away a troop like this, I have to question mark why. I also have to question mark what I can now do. Because now that I've got 30 plus troops still in the field, this is where I can move towards your base. Interesting question. We were just checking this because someone highlighted that this never got filled, but Ben never came back for it because he didn't want to wrap around that way. There's also an issue over here. In general, like the issue for Ben at this stage is he needs to play frontal because all the farms are here. And that fight forced, the way it was forced, like DeMusliM, he at least keeps a few knights alive, but it's not enough to deter a push. Really Unskilled is on his way in, and the timing on this could do a lot of damage because, folks, Ben, he's making his way up, and he's making his way up with the greedy choice, the guild hall in the back of his base. March in. He's going to start torching down the stables. Doesn't want to allow the rebuilder knights to come out. Instead, though, he'll go deeper. Deep into the base. The tech up comes out, and there it is. Torture now focusing onto the military infrastructure to make sure he can't build up the forces. He's going to force a fight here. Wrapped from both sides by Ben, but so many spears he can't easily engage. Ben. Spearman. Trying to get the value. He can block off the horseman. He can block him. No. Missed opportunity there. Really missed opportunity. Really Unskilled. He could have blocked the knights marching through that choke point and allowed the spearman to clean them up. But looks like it's still going to work out because Ben's in a little bit of a panic mode here. Trying to regroup his troops on the west side of the TC. We'll lose several knights in the process. Horsemen will hang around on top of the archers, and there might be enough horsemen left over to raid through onto the villager line. The villager line is now idle at the back of your base. 10 plus just not working right now. DeMusliM with 34 idle eco in total. Because of that full garrison. The torch down. Okay, this is pretty good for Really Unskilled if he's doing what I think he's doing. Saving up. If he's doubling down, this could backfire fast. I think he's got this idea in his mind that he's fully in control, so he can just block him entirely. In some regards, he's right, but he needs to let up off the food production a little, just so that he can afford a slow crawl towards castle. I like this move, but this move needs to be backed up by tech up of your own, because you can't do this forever. If he does split off, though, this is what I'm thinking. If he actually finds this eco to the south side, this could still work. The problem is, like, right now, although this is hurting DeMusliM, it's not stopping him. Look where he is. He's everywhere. So unless you find these pocket ecos, he's still going to get the resources to push troops to combat you over time. And those troops will be upgraded. You can see now already up to veteran Royal Knights. Those Knights will trade pretty damn well. The spearman count is struggling to keep up now. The Unskilled still continuing the push non-stop. Like, he's full in on this. I think he's going to try to end this game in feudal. This could be a very long feudal as well. But he's starting to reach the eco. This is the important detail. He found the wood line. Ben is going to be forced back. Still garrison with 20 here. Like, folks, right now, DeMusliM, you can see the lead has got 16 villages, but over that count are idle. 25 villages, in fact, not working. And now he goes in with the keep. But the keep, that's an overly zealous keep right now. Oh, no, no, no. No, Ben, how many is that going to cost you? There's so many injuries here already. He never got textiles. He had no reason to get textiles. Unskilled has been boxing his base for the better part of 20 minutes. But now it's Ben's turn. And this box is starting to look an awful lot like a coffin. Second pull of villagers to finish it off. That's going to finish off his eco lead. A lot of villagers are going to be going down here. He will get the keep up, but the price is going to be damn high. Ben now below Really Unskilled in the villager count. Now stabilized, forced to back away. Unskilled with a lot of surplus gold, but not much food. Won't take him long to catch up, though, because if he just grinds to a halt on the military production, he'll have what he needs in less than a minute. Definitely will with this many farms. 36 farms built. Over half of them being buffed up by the Arkan Chapel. The play now from Unskilled into the Stealth Forest. Wants to maintain control there. He can use it as an ambush point up against these Royal Knights. Royal Knights that, oh, buddy, you might be walking towards your death. One or two Knights will make it through. Could build a few more Spearmen to counter this. Build-up is underway. It's going to be the Regnitz Cathedral coming out from Unskilled. And Horsemen still raiding in the base. Uh-oh, DeMusliM. Uh-oh. Still no textiles. Still no textiles. And Archers is an ambitious choice against this, Ben. A very ambitious choice. Arbaletiers as well, also that won't fare well against the Horsemen. Another good trade for Unskilled, even with the keep firing upon him. He makes it a reasonable trade, killing off several villages and several military units. Spearman will chase the Knights out the other side. Ben now trailing by 7 villages. Military count still being doubled up by Really Unskilled as well. Tech up about to complete, and they're going to get a lot of upgrades as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he just sticks to Horsemen. That being said, with the Regnitz Cathedral, this is the moment where you can shift into Knights because, of course, you can afford the gold demand. Instead, he'll upgrade both. Has plenty in the field to justify it right now. Think about the cost as well. 350 resources on each of these. But then think about how many troops he's got. The Horseman count has to be like, what, 10 to 15 still? And the Spearman count is over 20. So this is worth it. Even if you transition units later, like to make these units more effective, to increase the increase in their health and increase in their damage, makes it worthwhile. And Unskilled. Oh, this outpost. This outpost is already going to pay off. He blocks him. Movement in. Almost gets 2 Knights instantly. He might still get that second one. It's a hot poker, really sticking in the backside there. And now he's sneaking a Siege Workshop. I love the way Unskilled's playing this midfield. I feel like players have gotten so much better at doing what has been done here by Unskilled. So much better at punishing these castle ages. Really Unskilled looked at the game and said, okay, instead of saying I have 40 military, I'm going to defend for the next 3 minutes to build up. I have 40 military. Why am I letting you get away with this? You should have to defend. And you can see the ripple effects this causes, how it really changes the game dynamics. Like, DeMusliM has been up in castle for a few minutes ahead of Really Unskilled. But when you look at the stats, it wouldn't feel that way in any way or form. And the Horsemen's still just being absolute fun inside. They get so scary when they vet up. The Veteran, with the increase in damage by 2, like on top of that, the fact they get extra health, like it's such a bigger nuisance to deal with. I do feel like Veteran Horsemen are underrated. Like, you know, you'll see people force Horsemen a lot, and then when it comes to the Vets, like they kind of get overlooked until people come back for Elites. But like the increase in damage, unless your opponent goes Textiles, it kills them notably faster. Much quicker, in fact. I think it's a very important difference in numbers from 9 to 11 because of the way that melee mosh pits work. Because like 4 or 5 units can very quickly jump on top of a villager. The rest have to wrap around on top of each other past. And the reason that number is important is because if you have 5 horsemen that are able to, in the first second, hit into a villager, without Textiles, that's a dead villager. Speaking of Textiles, looks like Ben has finally gone for that, and he's trying to reboom now with the multi-TC. Multi-TC that it looks like Really Unskilled should be able to spot before losing the last of the horsemen on the front line. Oh. There it is. Yep, info given over. Ben even garrisons to make sure. And it is going to be a free TC approach. So a full reboom. Unskilled is stacking up now, though. And it is only Palisade walls, so it won't take forever to get through. No Trebs just yet. Could be an interesting investment for Unskilled. He could definitely afford it. Mangonels also would be a phenomenal choice here, considering you are up against a ridiculous clump of archers. 41 archers coming out from Ben. Meanwhile, HRE Knights being chased. Basically double the amount of French Knights. That's a good distraction. He breaches in, and again, the Horsemen, they march through. Looking to shut down the eco boom. Movement in on the villager line. Ben, oh, he gets blocked out. That's nice. That's actually really nice what he's done there. He gets between him and the TC, but it's not going to stop him from garrisoning long enough here. Just not enough horsemen for the idea. You can see how they've been discounted. This is the cool thing. Like, the moment you see vet horsemen, this is why you then follow through with Textiles. Ben, like, before when it was normie horsemen, it hurts, but it's much harder to kill those villagers. Because of what I was talking about before, once you reach veteran horseman status, the way that melee engages is so much easier to clean up these units. But once they get Textiles, you once again have to wait for that full wraparound to insta-hit down villagers. Now Stonewall's going up. Ben, he is fully defensive. Like, he needs a full reboom. The problem is, while he's going for a reboom, Unskilled is just continuing to boom. Powers to Swabia being constructed. This is going to keep him in the lead in the villager department. Like, DeMusliM has just reclaimed it. He's about to lose it again. It's 3 TCs versus 4. And even with the increased production rate, this should end up putting Really Unskilled ahead in the coming minutes. Especially when you consider he already has 2 relics banked, and I believe, yep, he grabbed a 3rd. In fact, did he get the 4th? Not quite. In fact, did DeMusliM go for it? I don't think DeMusliM got a monastery. So there's 1 relic unaccounted for. This might just be 4 relics for Really Unskilled. Ah, it was. Yeah, he just sniped the outpost over here. There we go. Impop. And the remarkable part about the way Unskilled done this, the way he bulked himself, like, look at his military right now. He's pretty much at the cap he wants to be for a push-in. So he can just upgrade and go. DeMusliM, in comparison, not there. On eco or military. He's trailing the pop cap department. Trebs aren't going to back up. Horsemen invite themselves in for supper. And these Royal Knights, that is an ambitious attempt at diving a trebuchet that will not work out. As the Trebs start to come out, they are going to set their sights upon the TC. And now look at this, the defensive keep. Ben, the reactionary build. The good news for him is there's only 2 trebuchets, so it won't be quick enough to stop him here. But the initial damage done is going to keep him in a constant state of repair. You see, look at that. Already chipping away at a 1/3 of its HP. Wrap around with the Horseman in the meantime, blocked off by a few Knights here. As Ben does get his archers in position, trebuchets can stand their ground and start to force the repair crew to commit to this. That's going to be 9 idle eco units that also cost Ben wood. Really Unskilled. Is there going to be a transition coming out? Nope. It's filling on the Horseman up into elite status with the man-at-arms prepping as well. That's where his transition is going to be. Realizes Horseman at that stage can kind of deal with the veteran raw knives. Sprays come out from the Spearman. Chase in. Marching drills allowing for the quick gap close. 1.72 when they get in charging formation. Looks like he will back off. Doesn't want to deal with the choke point as you are up against ranged units, meaning they'll get maximum damage and you as melees won't. As you march out in the midfield, Ben does need to be careful because he doesn't have the vision inside this. He can't see in the Stealth Forest. And the Stealth Forest is being used remarkably well by Unskilled. Allows him to close in. And even when he's counted out directly, as these archers should be carrying out the spears, doesn't really feel like the one-sided affair you'd expect. This is still without the upgrade, mind you, because Unskilled doesn't care. Like, these spearmen are meant to be thrown away. He's transitioning into the man-at-arms. The man-at-arms that are almost elited up. That means that Ben needs to get hard on the Arbor of the Trees. He has got 17 in the field right now. Treb's just continue to work away at the keep. Unskilled nobly taking his time still. No rush from the big boy. Mangoes. He snuck the mango. He snuck the mango. Ben, you need to back away from this. You can't take the fight anymore. 3 or 4 mango shots in this fight will totally turn the tides against you. Shot off to the side. Not the best target here. Spearman numbers are starting to shrink, but the mangonel is the problem, and Ben has not prepped for this yet. No siege workshop, but we'll look to fix that now. One issue you do have if you're a DeMusliM in this game is gold is going to be limited the coming minutes. He's got about 6k reserve. He has mined a lot. Guildhall is on gold. That's why he just got a bulk of 3,000. But the problem with the French is they have a heavy gold demand. You know, without adding in the siege element here, Arbalatriers and Knights tends to dry you up fast. And it's why you need to find a way to wiggle your way out here. Gaining ground is important for him. Unskilled is willing to just throw away troops infinitely into this because he can afford food and gold in unlimited bundles due to the Regnits and due to the fact he has a ridiculous quantity of farms already online that are being buffed up by prelates. I wouldn't be surprised if... Ooh, Culverin. Unskilled is really playing this well. He's one step ahead of everything Ben wants to do. So Ben just doubled siege workshops to build springalds. Culverin's counting you out. Culverins have more range, 12 tile range compared to 10. So DeMusliM is now hard stuck. The moment he sees the Culverins, the only choice should be to try and go for Imperial yourself. But he can't do that until he at least gets pop capped. And he's still trailing away from that by 35. Knights on the side trying for a Sacred Site decap. That isn't a win condition that's easy right now for Unskilled because DeMusliM did wall him out of that. That was actually a really crafty move out of Ben to block that as a win condition because he wants to spend more time in his base. What's that time really going to translate to? Troublesome situation right now for DeMusliM because you have to really call it for what it is. It's an 800 gold trickle per minute for Really Unskilled. On top of that, being the HRE at this stage is just giving you ridiculous juicing in the food department via the Arca Chapel. It'll always keep him ahead. So you need to try and draw attention onto wood somehow. If you can force that investment out of Really Unskilled, that's where he loses a lot of eco gain. He won't have the gathering rates that he's getting on his food. Problem is, how do you do that easily? Well, one way is if Unskilled runs out of initial wood and plays into dangerous areas, but so far, I feel like he's got a lot of reserves he can easily access, and yeah, he's carving it up. Look at the amount of walls coming out from Unskilled. He's blocked off all the flank attack routes on the east and west side as he's walling up with stone walls on both the flanks. Speaking of flanks, oh my, he found his way in again. This choke point isn't blocking out Really Unskilled. Elite Horsemen are chunky enough to dive past it. Fast enough as well. Ben, he just got rid of that wood line. Might be to his detriment. Villager pull here, chasing them the Culverin. The repair crew, though, keep it alive. Not well enough. We'll be able to bring it down. Villagers now pulling back. DeMusliM in retreat. Can't afford to lose these villagers, though. He's already trailing behind. Wood situation. He has got reserves off to the west side, but they are small wood lines at that. Limited access. This could be his downside. The good news, at least, is he's not using that much wood. It's mainly just for the siege. The bad news is that every single production building requires wood, and you need a lot more of them because you need to keep the war machine turning at all times. Speaking of wood demand, I don't know if this was the smartest move out of Unskilled. He actually killed the Stealth Forest by building a lumber camp here instead of going for the eastern flanks. I think he discounted his position here. He was actually better off when this was up because these ranged units couldn't just outright attack you. They had to dive in first. Off the back of that, the DeMusliM starting to gain some ground. Culverins and Bombards holding the choke point. The Man-at-Arms able to hold the front line for the moment. Springwheels are being traded out. The Culverins and the Bombards are taking them out one by one, and that means Siege Advantage is going to be going the way of Really Unskilled if he notices the final Springwheel, that is. Front line is starting to deplete for DeMusliM. Aggressive keep coming out because he knows he needs to just stake his claim in this area. Make no mistake, though, these defenses, they're adding in damage. These Springwheel upgrades are stinging, and soon the cannon emplacements will be coming as well for Unskilled. DeMusliM will look to get this keep up. Isn't going to be rushed. The Arbiters are still unanswered, and one issue right now is Really Unskilled. Well, he hasn't got enough siege pushing out. He's running out. And this is another issue with where he tried to get wood. Instead of going on the eastern front straight away and having safe wood, he went for it in an exposed area, and as a result, he now doesn't have the wood to push Mangonels to counter this out. The keep crawl continues, Ben. Mangonel line is in full swing, folks. He's got enough for another keep after this. Really Unskilled. Military isn't there, but his eco still is. He needs to get it in the right place. It's still the problem for him. Like, where is his wood? He has no wood gathering right now. Oh, no, 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 no. That's a big mistake. He's actually going harder onto the gold. Ball keeps going up. He's going to shrink control. He's starting to contain Unskilled, but Unskilled isn't out of it yet. Remember, although this has boxed him in, it hasn't stopped him gathering on the food and gold. Now go for the reserve siege workshops. Is trying to stack up Mangonels. Switching up into the Elite Knights. The Elite Man-at-Arms will start to march forward. He wants to block this third keep from going up. Actually wants to block the dive out from the Knights that are looking into the backside of Unskilled's base. Empty area. He's looking in the wrong place because Unskilled is playing mid-map still. He's just doing so in a very snaky way. Relic is at least going to be taken away from Unskilled. Looks like he did back one of them up in time. DeMusliM gaining ground when it was most important. He needed this to keep up the rates, the demand of this war. But gold is depleting fast. Make no mistake, folks. This gold vein almost gone. Only one in reserve afterwards. He needs to fight for the center here. The center that is still somewhat controlled by Unskilled, as he did establish some dominance over this eastern sacred site early on with a keep. Now the dive in. He can't even get the mangoes. The mangoes are critical. If you cannot get rid of them, you're in trouble. Ben will have to back up because mainly his army is built up of range still with the Arbiters and the archers. It's Culverin being targeted out, but the repairs come out just in time to keep it alive. Is it good enough though? No, Springwheel. Now, this does feel like a mismanagement on multiple fronts now by Unskilled. He keeps missing this Springwheel. And considering he's building Culverins, there's not a great reason to not take it out, considering you one-hit them. A little bit of panic is somewhat costing him. DeMusliM. Now, the issue for Ben in this situation, if he was Imperial, this game is GG because he rushes through with Bombards. He is only Castle, so the Trebuchets take a long time to breach these defenses, especially considering there's emergency repairs. And that's the concern for me right now, is Ben, he isn't in a situation where he can find a way up. Look at his resource bank. He can't get any reserves because he's still not pop cap. If he was able to achieve pop cap, he can actually build back into this. But right now, Really Unskilled, he's going to hold. And the concern about that hold is the way that he depletes you from afar. Now that you've lost all the siege that can actually counter the Mangonels, the Culverins, if you can't consistently replace them, Unskilled can begin to get rid of everything you've built here. Culverins. It seems really trivial, but they are just killing these troops one by one. Like this is the dumb part. It sounds so petty, but like if you think that it's very feasible for a Culverin to kill 10 of these Arbitries, it's paid for itself past that point, like easily, because the Culverin costs 1,000 resources. Arbitries cost 120 each. It sounds so petty and so silly, but really think about the numbers. This is where Culverins have started to really see value increase. Like when you're full defensive like this and your opponent's playing static, you can just sit afar and snipe them one by one. Now, it's going to move into the critical target here, starting to snipe out the trebuchets. Dive in out of the Knights in the meantime. We'll look to get rid of that Culverin, but can't. Whoa, one final torch. Just in time, but the Mango's now entering the fray is a problem for DeMusliM. Especially with the bombars rolling out. That's where the keeps will die fast, and you can't keep a repair crew on the front line. The Flood Fruit comes out, really unskilled. He bided his time. He understood perfectly that DeMusliM did not have the means to end the game. He waits until he is capped and ready to push, and when he does, he pushes hard. DeMusliM, this is problematic. If you lose this keep line, you do actually lose this game, because your reserves are being depleted so fast. Look at how quickly he went through that gold at the back of his base. He needs this area. He needs it much more than Really Unskilled. Really Unskilled that has infinite gold trickle. From trickles to tickles, this is not just a tickling anymore. This is a pounding. These bombards, they already got through one keep. It's slow, but it's gaining traction fast here. DeMusliM cannot afford villagers on the front line to actually repair these. He only just caught up on the eco. But he might be falling behind in the military. And I have to remind people, this has been several minutes now, Imperial versus Castle. So that's another thing to consider. You can't just say, oh, but DeMuslim's getting pop cap as well, or they're both evenly pop capped. You're discounted by the fact that you're up against Imperial Age HRE with Bombards, Culverins, and elite variety units. Anything that was looking elite in your formation was these keeps. These keeps that cannot last much longer. The final one now being targeted. Double Bombard will make this fast. Make that 3 Bombards, 4 in the field. And this is where it begins to snowball. This is the power of Imperial. If you do reach it, the Bombards are meant to end the game fast, and you cannot allow your opponent to get to this count for free. But what do? Ben doesn't have an answer. The Culverins counter out the Springalds. The Elite Knights can match up damn well against the French Knights because, yes, they're vetted up. Yes, they're powerful, they're charged. But you and Guildhall, you don't have royal bloodlines. And if you look at this university, which did get crumbled in the end, you might notice something interesting about what Really Unskilled has done. He bulked his boys up. His Elite Knights are very difficult to breach. They're going to prove it in each of these following up fights. Pushing out. And this keep was a desperate plea for gold. Look at the villager pool right now. He needs it to stabilize. He needs the wood. The wood that's going to be contested because the upgrades coming out from all these outposts, and this outpost from Unskilled. This tiny little piece of information on the side might actually be the detail that just forces DeMusliM to wave the white flag. He can't reach the wood anymore. He can't reach the gold. He can't fight in the center. And if you were losing the fights already, what happens when you run out of resources? Look at the gold for DeMusliM. Look at the pop cap. You don't even get a chance to. DeMusliM realizes the writing's on the wall. Really Unskilled. I don't think I got a really unskilled approach to this game. It was a really methodical approach to this game that gives him a late game boom win up against the French, up against the top 1 person in the world. But what do you expect out of a guy that only plays HRE? I think if anyone could pull it off, the guy who's 25th in the world with 724 games of Holy Roman Empire would be the one to do it.